When I look at, what's at the heart of resignation? At the heart of resignation is I've given up on some possibility.
Welcome to Leadership Impact, the podcast for modern executives who are reinventing leadership within their organizations, with your host, executive leadership coach and CEO of the Granger Network, Kari Granger, and me, Paul Adams, CEO of Sound Financial Group. This is episode 2 of our 4-part series on momentum. What is your source of ambition?
Welcome back to the Leadership Impact. I'm Kari Granger, the CEO of the Granger Network. In last week's episode, we talked about the power of moods to support or sabotage our commitments in life. In today's episode, we will look at how to intervene in those moods. Remember, we're not out to get rid of moods. We can't anyway. But rather, we're out to learn how to cultivate those moods that support our ambitions in life. Today, I'm joined by Paul Adams. Paul, what real-world example do you have for us today?
I'd love to give you a real-world example, but I just have to say something about our last episode. Since we recorded it, the idea of what I need to do is not just navigate around moves, not just set them aside or try to demolish somebody else's moods, but help myself and others cultivate the moods that are appropriate for where we're at or what we're doing has been an absolute game changer for me. If those of you listening to this episode haven't heard the prior episode, I cannot say enough good about going back to that episode, listen to it, take notes, and maybe have your spouse or some key employees in your company listen to it. It is that big of a deal to maybe modify the way you interact in relationships. So with that, let me get to today's example. I'd really like, if we could, to dig into ambition. And it speaks to something that we faced recently, and we really talked about on my podcast, Sound Financial Bites, the idea of the Sirens Song of more. I think back to the times of ancient Greece and, Homer's Odyssey, and that Odysseus was traveling by ship, had heard about the sirens, and he took certain actions to defend himself against them. But we face sirens songs that sink our ships every day. Now, if you're not familiar with the myth, in Homer's Odyssey, there are these women who are on this island who sing, and it is such a beautiful song that sailors will sail their ships right onto the rocks, wreck their ships, kill everybody on the boat, nobody returns, and nobody who's heard the Sirens songs returns. I think the similar things happen to executives and entrepreneurs when it comes to certain things around their accomplishments. There are siren songs that attract them. For instance, the business owner's siren song is, well, how many employees do you have? Or what's total revenue? Or how many offices do you have? And those are the kinds of accomplishments that look really great to everybody else. Or the executive that wants to have success, and he gets attracted by, you're going to be able to fly first class in this new role, and you're going to get an expense account, and you're going to be able to keep all your frequent flyer miles, and you're going to have this many more people on your team, and your territory is going to get larger. And all of that sounds well. And it's like, oh, by the way, you're going to be traveling 140, 180 days a year. And what can get lost in that is maybe the things that those people really care about, like being at Taekwondo with their kids 2 days a week. And that they get this siren song distracts them from what they actually care about building in their businesses or building in their career. And it gets wrecked on the rocks. Unfortunately, it's the ambition we have for other areas of our life. While our career may be soaring, relationships with key people in our life, or other colleagues could suffer, or our children, or maybe even our future plans financially can suffer or be broken up on the rocks because of the siren song.
Yeah, so good, Paul. Now, this morning when I came into work and I thought, oh, Paul and I are doing an episode on moods. And I thought, boy, I'm in a mood. And I hope that I can shift my mood to be able to do this podcast recording effectively. And just in listening to you, I'm going to bring in my own example, right? So, now is the time in which I start looking at, what's my next year going to do in my business. And our business has grown fairly exponentially this year. And
I'll say.
right. And I've never before had a feeling of obligation or responsibility to bring in a level of revenue that I didn't know I could just do almost in my sleep. I just have such a bigger team. And, to give an idea, in just 1 year, we've grown about 500%. And in terms of our team members, in terms of the size of our team. And what I could see in just listening to you is I lost sight a bit of my ambition just in these last couple weeks here, in that I lost sight of what is my fundamental care. What do I fundamentally care about accomplishing? And I started to get wrapped up in the Sirens Song of a high revenue target. And so when, certain prospecting calls didn't turn out the way that I had envisioned them turning out, it was easy for me to get in a mood of resignation, where I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't possible, or even to get in a mood of resentment, like, hey, how come I'm the only one producing revenue for this business, right? And even to start second guessing, do I really want to grow? So all of these moods as I go after these siren songs just start to overtake me. And I can see my resilience in maintaining a productive mood and maintaining a mood that's going to really serve me to achieve my ambition. My resilience when I've lost sight of that ambition is much lower. So, just listening to you, I can hear that where I got to is like, I have to, right? I have to make this revenue target, or man, if we make this revenue target, this is what we'll be able to do, or this is what I'll have coming home to me, or this is what I'll be able to pay my team. But it's not what we had at the core of why we said we wanted to grow. So, if I really look at what is the true ambition, why even grow the Granger Network, for example, right? Why not just stay with where I was? Well, because we actually got that our work can make an enormous impact on the way that we relate to performance in modern times, that our work brings the human heart, the human connection, deep responsibility and creation to the business world, that we demonstrate, that we access these aspects of our human experience as nutrients for a thriving and profitable business. So how often do we see that human heart connection, responsibility, and creation are nutrients for a thriving and profitable business? And when I put that ambition in front of me, my mood shifts. I have a higher level of resilience. The resignation kind of fades because it's not about, let me make this revenue target. It's about, let me bring this to the world. And I now see new actions that I can take. Whereas before it was just, kind of dwelling in this conversation or that conversation, less emotional fortitude, I would say.
And can I ask that, what does it do for you when you get in that mood of resignation? You've gotten away from your ambition for what you want to create for yourself, for your family, for your career, for your business. And then you re-engage and re-look at, what is it I was, for lack of a better way of saying, for the sake of what am I doing this anyway? How much does that act then as a filter for you of what actions to take that you're not taking right now, what actions to modify that you've been taking, or what actions to stop that you were already in that maybe don't actually serve once you re-anchor yourself in your ambition?
Yeah, Paul, can I answer you the long way around?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a long way around to answer your question, but just in your asking the question, it showed up for me. So, when I look at, well, what's at the heart of resignation? At the heart of resignation is I've given up on some possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something was possible, but I no longer see it as possible. And either maybe it's possible for other people, but not me, or it's just not possible. Okay. So what was at the heart of that resignation? And what was that possibility? Well, when I was in resignation, what I had given up on was a certain revenue target. I had lost track of the actual possibility, right? So when I look at ambition, I look at where did I just take myself in the call here based on your comments. Ambition is actually kind of the opposite. So ambition is I see a possibility. I accept a possibility. I see that for myself. So now when I get back into ambition, and I'd like to talk about in a moment how to make that transition from resignation to ambition so it doesn't sound like Pollyanna. When I get into ambition, what I notice is actually the possibility was actually a little different. So it wasn't like, oh, now I can see we can make, this revenue target, but rather it was the possibility that I expressed of bringing a new kind of relation to performance to the business world. And so what the impact is when I was in resignation centered around a revenue target and whether or not my prospects or my clients were saying the right things, the orientation, the actions that I could take is, okay, now what other prospects could I talk to, and how might I alter my package structure or pricing structure? Versus when I'm in the mood of ambition and I see the possibility of what we can bring to businesses to have these thriving, profitable businesses, I see service. So, and to be honest, that's how I've always operated. My work is always about how do I serve my clients' ambitions? How do I serve, what's possible for my client? And it completely alters the entire conversation. So my conversations with my prospects actually aren't, okay, let me put the line item of what I think I can predict that will bring in next year. No, the conversations are, what do they want to accomplish, which makes for way more fulfilling conversations and ultimately does, also benefit us in that it does bring in certain revenue. So the difference is I start to get excited about the contribution we can make, which alters my conversations.
Yeah, I hear it. And I can even hear as we talk through the conversation today, the shift from when you and I first started hanging out this morning before even beginning the recording.
Right. Right. How I came in, I didn't sound, my voice did not sound like this to our listeners. My voice is like, oh, Paul, we're talking about ambition.
Yeah. And even just talking through that. And I think there's powerful people, I'm always thinking about what's the thing somebody can do right after this podcast would be to figure out who those key people are that are champions for your life turning out. That could be a colleague at work, a mentor, spouse. But the ability to just talk through kind of like Kari just did. Here's what we want to do. And this is what's really important to us. And you'll watch that just talking skill set to just do it internally and self-generate, you can generate it in conversation with another person.
Well, and Paul, that's what coaching is all about. That is what executive coaching is all about. So what Paul said, you just have a person in your life to do it. Right? Like have the kind of person who can listen, like, Paul can listen. He's listening for my success. He's listening for my fulfillment. He's listening in, a great way, a way of acceptance, which I want to talk a little bit about acceptance before we leave today. And also that's what our profession is all about. So that is what coaching is all about, is to have somebody who listens to you in a particular way such that you're able to work things out.
Yes.
Paul, I'd like to say just a little bit about acceptance. May I?
Please.
Yeah. So one of the ways for ourselves to move from resignation to ambition, or from resentment to ambition, or even fear to ambition, or, any particular mood, one that's an unproductive one to even a productive mood, you can get there by way of acceptance. So in today's episode, Paul, just your conversation, your coaching with me. Thank you for your coaching today. Your coaching with me. I got there by realizing, well, what is the possibility that I'm after and seeing how I had really shifted and getting clear on clear on what my ambition is. But another way that I find is really useful in working with myself and working with clients and friends is to work on the mood of acceptance. So what is acceptance? Acceptance is not tolerance. Acceptance isn't saying, okay, I guess I have to put up with the way it is. Acceptance is acknowledging what's so as what's so. So it's not like, oh, the client didn't, or the prospect didn't say yes, and that means I'll never make this, and it means it wasn't a good idea to grow my business, and it means I'll fail as a CEO. And so oftentimes when something happens, we can add the and. So it's something happened plus all the interpretations and conclusions and, negative and positive fantasies we have about that. And I can see, that's a little bit where I was this morning. That's what got me in the mood of resignation and resentment, is I had concluded things about what happened. Acceptance is simply saying that happened. This is so. And it's possible for the rest of my life, it's going to be so. And that's it. Just this is so, period. And when we can get to a mood, when we can get to a space of acceptance, a really interesting thing happens in that a horizon of possibility opens up. So I just, whether it's fear, and, fear is about, I anticipate or I predict that I'm going to lose something that's really important to me. So even if I can get an acceptance around that, right? Like, wow, this thing is really important to me. I fear I'm going to lose it. Period. Doesn't mean I am going to lose it. It's just like, wow, this is really important to me. And, there's a risk I might lose that. Just being in acceptance around the mood, around what happened, can open up a great place for us. And that's how I often find that I can source my own ambition, is to, as circumstances show up, bring a mood of acceptance to it.
And the accepting of the mood gives you enough context to then be able to reinvent a new future based upon what you care about, your ambition.
Yeah, both what happened and the mood, like, oh, I didn't have a good prospecting call. It's even good, that's an interpretation. They said they're down, their customers are down 40% in the market, and they don't know where the, funds are going to come from. That's what was said.
Yeah.
No, can I just accept that? And can I accept that I was disappointed to hear that? Period. Not, and it means all these things, right?
Yes. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard something like that, where two companies working together trying to make a decision. Somebody's in that spot of like, I don't know where the next dollar is going to come from, where our revenue is going to come from. We got this change in tariffs, whatever the stuff is. And instead, we're able to listen to that and then ask them and say, well, what do you think that means for the future plans of what you have in place? And watch by asking a question that we can almost get out of their own mood.
Right.
That they're in. They're in that resignation, just simply asking them to share more about it. And they, especially accomplished people, will navigate themselves around it if we are willing to not try to just invent a new future ourselves and give it to them, but really just, based upon all that, what do you do tomorrow and the next month? And people invent their way out of it. So do we need to change our relationship? They go, no, I think we need to write you twice as much check as we did last.
Right. Yeah. And Paul, here's what I'd like to note in your example is you're listening from a space of acceptance. Like, okay, that's so. Okay, you're going to say this, you're going to say that. It doesn't matter. I'm not attached to what you say. I'm just here in service. So your listening from a place of acceptance is really giving them the space to accept themselves and then to be reconnected to their ambition. What is it that they see as possible for themselves?
Go through your week. Before you engage the next episode, look around the people in your workplace, look around the people you spend time with at home, and watch how it almost seems like their world is closing in because of a mood that we talked about in the last episode. And sometimes observing other people getting outside of their ambition and getting wrapped up in a current mood, and it closes down their future possibilities, will allow you to better understand where you do that. And then when you see those things happening for you, share with somebody else, engage a coach, which the coach may not be a professional one. It might be somebody who just listen for your success and your future. Because I think what that's going to give you the ability to do is to think very differently about what's possible.
And thank you, Paul. Usually we come in with an example or some other, client example or something like that. But it's totally authentic on the recording today. We hadn't rehearsed any of this. And, I just feel so much better when I'm connected to my ambition. So I just really want to thank you, Paul. And I hope that, our looking at my own situation has contributed to all of our listeners.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Impact, the podcast for modern executives who are reinventing leadership within their organizations. Subscribe now at GrangerNetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And to support you in your leadership impact, we've created an exclusive set of guiding questions on today's topic. Just text the word ambition to 900-900 and you'll receive the link. We also have some special offers for you. Between now and the end of 2018, you can register for our upcoming productivity and accomplishment workshop for 25% off, or any of Kari's online courses for 50% off with the coupon code CELEBRATE as we celebrate our launch at GrangerNetwork.com. Join us for our next episode on Momentum.